at IESL. I am Engineer Lakshmi Sirivardhana, an engineer at Mahavali Authority of Sri Lanka, and I will be the host of today's event. This year, we organized this as hybrid event. And before we proceed, let me introduce some housekeeping rules for our online audience who are joining us through Zoom platform. These engineers named Engineer Sarvanathan and two more will join Northern Provincial Council who act as rapporteurs. So please keep your cameras and microphones off for the entire duration of this event to help them for housekeeping work. At the end of this event, we will circulate the Google form. Please fill that in with the preferred name which you wish to put on your e-certificate, which will be distributed your valuable participation in the World Water Day celebrations in the Water Forum. It is highly appreciated your cooperation for the event to be a success. And I heartily congratulate all the members who have contributed to this event's success. To keep in line with our rich tradition and culture of Sri Lanka, I would like to invite our honorable guests and invitees, in spite of their busy schedules, have agreed to present here on this occasion to light the oil lamp and inaugurate the World Water Day celebrations 2023. Professor Ranjit Disanayake, President-elect at IESL, Engineer Kamala Gunawardena, Chairperson, Civil Engineering Sectoral Committee, Professor Buddhi Marambe, Engineer Nishantha Kamaladasa, Dr. Shiromani Jayawardena, Engineer Sudharma Alakanda, Engineer Deepthi Sumanasekara, Engineer Tushara Disanayake, representative from the World Bank, and another representative from Northern Province, Engineer Sudhakaran, and Project Director, Climate Resilience Integrated Water Management Project. Please come to the stage. Yes. Thank you very much, sirs and madams. As I earlier mentioned, the World Water Day 2023 campaign called Accelerating Change and aims to inspire individuals to take action in their own lives to change the way they use, consume, and manage water. The Accelerating Change campaign recognizes that every person has a role to play in protecting and conserving the world's water resources. It encourages people to take simple yet meaningful actions in their daily lives. These actions can help conserve water and reduce wastage, thereby contributing to sustainable water management. The campaign also called for individuals to take collective action in their communities, workplaces, and schools. For example, organizing a neighborhood cleanup drive, promoting rainwater harvesting, and supporting water conservation initiatives can create a positive impact on environment and help ensure water availability for future generations. But how can it be done? How we can highlight the importance of policy changes and systematic interventions to address the global water crisis through the Accelerating Change campaign. It is sufficient? How we can urge governments in the world to accelerating change from individual approaches to the national level, then the intergovernmental level in water sector. As practitioners in the water sector in Sri Lanka, we believe that we can play a major role to accelerating change, to give a lot of inputs to accelerating change campaign with adaptation and applying proper mitigation measures to climate change with and conserve the water resources in Sri Lanka. As engineers, we can take action in promoting sustainable water management practices in our day-to-day work and advocating for policy changes that can make a positive impact on the environment and communities as well. How we can apply the accelerating change concept to the additional drivers such as climate change and urbanization on sustainable development and management of water resources. To answer those questions, we have invited a panel of experts to share their knowledge. We will cover in three thematic areas of governance, meteorology, international and local practices, and usage. We must work together to improve or apply the accelerating change concept to achieve sustainable development goals through integrated water resources development and management approaches. With that introduction, let me invite Engineer S. Rajkumar, Vice Chairman of IESL Water Forum, to address the gathering.
Good afternoon. My role is to welcome all of you all. And today we have participants who have physically present here and those who have joined us through the online platform. Today's panel discussion is on accelerated change to solve water crisis. Is part of the World Water Day celebrations 2023 organized by the Water Forum of IESL, which is considered the World Water Day function organizing by the IESL Water Forum is considered as one of the main events in their annual calendar. We welcome the President of IESL, Dr. Kamal Laksiri, President-elect Professor Ranjit Disanayaka, Engineer Kamala Gunawardena, Chairman of Civil Engineering Sectional Committee, and the Water Forum Chairman, Engineer Bhadra Kamalasa. Consequent to the UN Assembly resolution, on 22nd of March in 1992 was declared as a World Water Day. Since then, since 1993, we observe the day as a World Day of Water. Every year, we raise awareness about water resource conservation among people. The theme of the World Water Day 2023 is Accelerating Change. This theme aims to urge government and the civil society and the individuals to accelerate progress towards achieving Sustainable Development Goal 6. To ensure safe drinking, bathing, and using proper sanitation facilities for everyone. We need more action, ambition, and innovation. The main goal is to fulfill the commitment of 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and ensure that the water and sanitation and hygiene wash are seen as a core element in all sectors. Additionally, the theme explores how to coordinate action across multiple sectors, strengthen the collaboration among stakeholders, and maximize impacts. In 2023, the World Water Day will provide the opportunity for people's cooperation and the government to take responsibility for achieving the WASH objectives on time, government to prioritize investment in infrastructure such as pipes, sewers, wells, pumps, water tanks, and basic maintenance systems. Today's panel's discussion on accelerating change to solve water crisis will discuss on how to inspire and empower individuals to act in their own lives and communities to change how they use, consume, and manage water, as well as protect and conserve water resources and persuade the government to regulate actions. So the panelists are going to tell us individually how we could contribute individually. Yes, the change has to come from us. We welcome the panel members, Professor Buddhi Marampana, Engineer Nishanta Kamaldasa, Dr. Shomani Javodana, and the discussant, Engineer Deepthi Sumanasekara, and Engineer Tushar Disanayaka, and the moderator of the section of Engineer L. Elakanda. We welcome all of you. The technology has given us the facility to pass on the message island-wide. And we welcome all those who are physically present here and all those who have joined us through online platform. I was given a long list of distinguished invitees representing from ministries, departments, organizations, projects, banks, and IESL chapters. We welcome all of you. This program is done by the Water Forum Committee, and we welcome all of them too. Let us take back something from this program for the betterment of our future generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Rajkumar. Next, you will hear from our President-elect. It is great pleasure to invite you, sir, for the opening remarks of the Water Day celebrations 2023. Professor Ranjit Disanayake, the President-elect of IESL. We invite you to address the forum.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is great pleasure that I welcome you to the IESL on behalf of the Council. And today we are celebrating the World Water Day. It has been recognized that there's a scarcity of the water, not only water, but also almost all the resources is getting scarce day by day. We have to think what has happened. We being the human being, we were so smart to develop and enjoy the luxury life of making the things as we want. We never thought about the optimization and efficiency and so forth. After some time, we realized that the amount of the resources available, including the water, is less and getting scarce, getting reduced day by day. But we cannot do anything because of our own technology has produced so many population to the world and health sector and various other way, the lifetime as well as the curing our health and so forth. Population is being increased, so demand in the resources for our trained luxury life. What has been one of the very important community. So, but something that have missed is we have not looked at how nature is treating for these resources. We are bringing different concept to sustain, as I've been in the Chairman Green Building Council of Sri Lanka. We are also trying our best to maximum utilize or efficiency of the water, energy, land, environment quality, and so forth, material of course. What we are trying to do, we are trying to bring back what the nature is doing. When in the nature, when we want the water, we go to where the water has been collected. That the same concept has brought to us, saying rainwater harvesting. Then again, in order to reduce the energy, we say that why not block, why bring the daylight in so that we can cut down the light. So of course, we live with the daylight, and when the daylight goes, we sleep. But what we do is we don't sleep, and we having the lights, and we utilize the more and more resources. When you go back to each and every element, which are very important, like the material, energy, water, environment, land, and so forth, we again trying our best to go back to the nature. So solution is in the nature. Nature is the best scientist. Nature is the best laboratory that ever we can find in this earth. So we are trying to build the big laboratories and so forth, but you can't compare with the nature. Nature is the best. So solution for the water scarcity is to go with the nature, respect the nature. So I request you all to respect, love the nature. This is where the solution to the scarcity. I especially would like to thank Professor Buddhi Marage, who is my good friend of mine, who coming all the way to here, and Engineer Deepthi, and Kamala Gunawardana, and the chairpersons, and all the Water Forum for organizing this important event. I wish you all the best. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, sir. We highly appreciate your suggestions and contributions to the event. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further delay, let's move on to today's main agenda. As I explained earlier, we have arranged 3 presentations from the specialists in the water sector to share their knowledge with us, and it will be followed by a panel discussion. The panelists are Professor Buddhi Marambe, Engineer Nishantha Kamaladasa, Dr. Shiromani Jayawardena. Let me invite Professor Buddhi Marambe, Engineer Nishantha Kamaladasa, and Dr. Shiromani Jayawardena to the stage. Since we will be having a panel discussion, the comments by discussants will be addressed by Engineer Deepthi Sumanasekara and Engineer Tushara Disanayaka. Let me invite you both to the stage. Now it is the time to introduce the moderator for the session, and he is none other than Engineer DCS Alakanda. It is my great pleasure to introduce you to this vital session of the Water Day. Engineer Sudharma Alakanda, presently working as the Project Director of Umawaya Multipurpose Development Project and CRESS MPA under the Ministry of Irrigation. Prior to this appointment, he was the Project Director for Climate Resilience Improvement Project and DSW RPP, which is funded by World Bank and continuously received satisfactory rating from the World Bank and was considered as the best projects successfully completed in Sri Lanka recently. He was attended to most of the key international water sector programs and presented technical papers. He joined the Mahavali Authority of Sri Lanka in 1979 and having more than 35 years of experience in various capacities of Mahavali Development Program. During his Mahavali career, he reached to the Additional Director General position of MASL and retired in 2014. He served as a board member of the Board of Directors of Civil Aviation Authority, Council member of GWPSA, and fellow Council member of IESL. He was obtained Master of Business Administration degree from University of Colombo and 2 postgraduate diplomas on Construction Management and Environmental Management from the University of Moratuwa. Engineer Alakanda is the corporate member of the IESL Civil Engineers Institute of Civil Engineers London since 1982 and fellow member of IESL as well. His basic degree in BSc in Civil Engineering and he is a product of University of Peradeniya, Sri Lanka. Sir, it's yours.
Thank you, Lakshmi, for your introduction. I think time is the constraint. Yes, good afternoon to you all. I think today my role is to introduce our 3 eminent speakers, Professor Ruti Marabe, Engineer Nishanta Kamaladas, and Dr. Shiromani Jayawardena. And before that, I think we have, due to time constraints, we have introduced, I think Lakshmi has explained. So this audience is not allowed to raise questions and clarifications, but they can write and submit in papers, so we can include that in our final reports. As we all know, that World Water Day is an annual event celebrated on 22nd March, and I think I quoted this portion from the report. So it says that to create awareness on the fresh water and advocate sustainable management of water resources. This year, as Lakshmi explained, the theme of this World Water Day 2023 is the accelerating change to solve the water crisis. I think this is a very relevant one, but I think majority of we all know that each year we have different themes. If you remember correctly, that very early days we had some IWRM concept. We discussed about the concepts, and then planning of water sector. Sometimes we discuss some as water for all. So all these things are different themes that we have discussed. But we have to now think, although we had World Water Days celebrations every year, how far we have implemented what we have discussed those events. So this is very critical one. But this year theme is very much relevant and very timely, valid for today's situation. Because we know that there are a lot of changes in the climate change and environment is largely changing. How we are adapting to that situation. So that's the main challenge that we are having at this moment. So I think this event was organized by Water Forum of ISL. I think our engineer, Mrs. Kamala Das, is the chairman, and I think she is very committed for this water sector activities in today's, situation. So I think that credit should go to the organizing committee, and this is, will be part of the global celebrations also. So I think with that, without going into detail too much, let me go to our main session. Our three eminent speakers are ready to, deliver their speeches. First, let me introduce our Professor Buddhi Marbe, and so I will take 1 or 2 minutes to introduce Buddhi Marbe, our Professor Buddhi Marbe. Professor Buddhi Marbe obtained his BSc degree in agriculture from University of Peradeniya, Sri Lanka, and Masters of Agriculture and Doctor of Agriculture from Hiroshima University from Japan. He has more than 36 years experience as an academic at the Department of Crop Science of Faculty of Agriculture, University of Peradeniya. And his research interests include wheat science, climate change adaptation, and the food security. Professor Marbe has won the prestigious Lifetime Achievement Award from the International Wheat Science Society, IWSS, in 2022 for the contribution made to field of wheat science. He has also won the Presidential Award and the National Research Council Merit Award in Sri Lanka for scientific research. Professor Marbe is the President of the Wheat Science Society of Sri Lanka, Chairman of the National Invasive Species Specialist Group, and the former Chairman and a member of the National Experts Committee on Climate Change Adaptation of Ministry of Environment. He was a member of the government delegation on climate negotiations at the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change during last 10 years. He was also Assistant Secretary of Lanka Organic Agriculture Movement for the period of 2001 to 2003. While being an academic, Professor Buddhi Marbe has also served as a non-executive member of boards of several private sector organizations, providing technical guidance to agriculture-related operations, and council member, executive committee member of many professional associations. Professor Marbe has provided his services as a consultant to all international organizations such like World Bank, ADB, European Commission, UNDP, FAO, UNEP, and CIAT in nationally as well as internationally important issues related to climate change, adaptation, food security, and agriculture. So with that short introduction, let me invite Professor Buddhi Marbe to deliver his speech. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Chairman, sir, for the kind introduction. The President of the Institute of Engineers, President-elect, my colleague, Professor Ranjit Dissanayake, and distinguished guests. Let me first thank Engineer Janaki Megastana for inviting me for this occasion, which I consider as a pleasure and a privilege to be in front of you at this very important event to talk about water-related issues. I was actually moderating a workshop today morning at Battaramulla, where the finalization of updated national climate change policy took place for more than 4 hours, starting from over 9 o'clock. Water was a hot topic naturally. The people spoke of how water-related matters can be inbuilt into the national climate change policy, which is already there. We are talking about updated national climate change policy, which is hopefully to be approved by the Cabinet of Ministers by end of June this year. I sincerely hope, I think there were a few engineers in that forum as well, who made a lot of commitments and comments with respect to the national climate change policy. So I think it's a very nice follow-up for me after being there, moderating that session, and being here presenting with respect to water, society, and climate change. We all know, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I heard in the introductory remark, we're talking about Kim Parakram Bahu. It's not only Kim Parakram Bahu. During ancient kings' time, we had a privilege, probably, unlike that we experience right now. The kings at that time had advisors who can foresee the future with scientific base. The term climate change was not in operation at that time, I'm sure, but people knew about climate variability. Part of the year, there's more rainfall, and the remaining part of the year, there's less rainfall. And the kings and their advisors started thinking of a mechanism, how to safeguard water that we receive in excess, and to make sure agriculture, human consumption, and animal consumption can be facilitated during the time period when there is less water. Here comes reservoirs in place to support that activity. And we still enjoy that luxury at this particular moment, especially with respect to agriculture, human consumption, and especially consumption of water by wildlife. That's how agriculture and the hydrological society or hydrological civilization in Sri Lanka has evolved. We simply cannot forget that, and that will continue to be in place in the foreseeable future in this country. That's where the importance of water comes in always. It has been linked together with agriculture and the society, and that's exactly why I decided to choose this title called Water, Society in a Changing Climate. I'm not talking about the variability in climate, but I would like to talk to you about the climate change, and not to give you the basics of climate change, which I know all of you are very conversant about, but let me try to develop this link to see how society can come in forward and try to help the water management issues, as many of you all have been discussing in the past and will be discussing in the future as well. With that limited introduction, one thing, we all know until 1980s, 40 years ago, the scientists in the whole world have been debating that whether climate change is taking place or not. But within a couple of years, more than 2/3 of the global scientists decided to conclude, fortunately, I think, conclude that climate change is real. There's no time for argue, but let's try to start finding solutions, and also making sure that the rate at which climate change is happening will have to be reduced. Do remember that all our efforts with respect to climate change is not to stop climate change. Climate change is happening. It's happening at an unprecedented rate than it would have happened in the natural scenario. Greenhouse gases, as you all know, as we all speak of every time, are natural scenarios. But of course, the human development, the industrial revolution, as you all know, has made sure the release of greenhouse gases by the name of development has expanded rapidly. And that's why we are worried right now. We all know water vapor is the greenhouse gas, but we do not consider water vapor as a gas that contributes to climate change. We all know the reason for that, but let me come to that point. But before talking about water and its contribution to climate change, while it is being considered as a greenhouse gas, the important point to be kept in mind is climate change is not a myth, but is happening in the real world scenario. It's a fact. There's no time to argue. But then the most important point, ladies and gentlemen and colleagues, is that water plays a very crucial role when you start feeling the impact of climate change. Let me give you an example with respect to agriculture. Since 1948, our agriculture has been improving thanks to the contribution of researchers, especially from the Department of Agriculture, from universities, especially from the faculties of agriculture, the private sector, and more importantly, the farming community, who embrace the technology and make sure agriculture prosper in this country. Paddy, for example, we all know that in 1950s, our average paddy yield was merely 650 kilograms per hectare. 650 kilograms per hectare. 70 years later, in 2020, our average paddy yield is 4,800 kilograms per hectare. Who did these wonders? It's the researchers and the farming community, with the support of the private sector, having the inputs at the correct time in adequate quantities and at affordable prices, making sure the farming community move ahead with respect to developing agriculture. However, climate played havoc in all these incidences. Since 2008, we have been producing more paddy than we can consume. I repeat, since 2008, we have been consuming more paddy than we can consume as rice in this country. That's an important phenomenon. A lot of people argue and bargain and say that Sri Lankan agriculture has never seen prosperity. But we have been developing and we have been supporting agriculture in this country, especially in terms of paddy, where rice is our major staple. However, 2016 and 17, I hope you remember those 2 years. Those were the worst years ever that Sri Lanka faced in terms of climate. In other words, those were the 2 years where 3 consecutive cultivating seasons failed due to lack of water, due to lack of rainfall, mainly because of the drought. The worst drought ever Sri Lanka has experienced since gaining independence, at least. That's the history that I know. I do not know what has happened there before 1948. And that 2 years, 2016 and 2017, despite the fact Sri Lanka has been performing well in developing the paddy sector, we had to import 47,000 metric tons of rice to feed our nation for about 3 months in 2017. Do remember that. Our monthly consumption is about 200,000 metric tons of rice. So we were having a scarcity issue with respect to rice at that time. Due to climate change, due to lack of water, where paddy cultivation could not take place continuous for 3 seasons. The seasons were ineffective, and so Sri Lankan government decided to import rice. That's quite similar to what we experienced about 1.5 years ago, when Sri Lankan government took this unfortunate decision to ban the importation of synthetic fertilizer and synthetic pesticides. I'm now relating to what happened with respect to low water and poor policy making. That also impacted our agriculture sector very seriously. Last year alone, we imported 783,000 metric tons of rice, spending more than $250 million to feed our nation. I draw parallels here, ladies and gentlemen. Climate change and policy change. In Sri Lanka, there are parallels that we can draw. Climate change and policy change caused by human beings. Climate change and policy change, we never know what is going to happen tomorrow. Climate change and policy change in Sri Lanka has always made sure there are detrimental negative impacts, very unfortunately. So those are the parallels. But let me come back to the water issue right now by telling you, because we're talking about policies, we're talking about decision making, and that's the overall idea of this presentation session as well. So make sure nature, whenever the time nature performs well, nature supports us, we have to make sure evidence-based decision making comes up. And that is the importance of knowing and supporting water-related issues in this country. And I'm sure you as engineers is in the correct path and try to make sure this precious resource is managed properly, and the decisions based on management of the precious resource will be taken based on evidence. Those are the two ways, two things that can take our life forward. Water is not only for agriculture. Water is for human and animal consumption as well, as I told you earlier. And water is the precious resource that will make sure life on earth will move forward, irrespective of what is happening in and around us. But climate change, we simply cannot forget. We all know El Nino is on the cards for year 2023, this year. Although still not being targeted, saying that at what time it's going to land on us, global community is taking serious consideration with respect to El Nino even this year. We hope and pray that will not affect our agriculture, that will not affect the water availability for 2023, and that will not affect the livelihood of our people. That's an important point to be kept in mind. We all know what is in store for us. This is third national communication results that were submitted to UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, just last year. The document was released this year though, but it was submitted earlier as well. What it says is that what is in store for us, not a good sign. All analysis very categorically says that wet seasons in Sri Lanka are going to be wetter and dry seasons in this country are going to be drier. Not a good sign at all. Had the wet season become little drier or dry season become little wetter, that would have been blessing in disguise. We all know more water is more detrimental than less water, especially in terms of living. Zero water is a problem, I do understand. I'm talking about excess water and less water. When you consider those two scenarios, this situation is not going to do any good with respect to agriculture and with respect to food security in this country. Trouble is in store for us. Let's be cognizant about this fact. Whenever the time you as engineers, we as agriculturists take decisions together to make sure country prospers with respect to its economy. That's the important part that we all have to work together. If we do work in compartments, we all will be in trouble. If you do not understand the repercussions that's going to take place with respect to climate change, we'll all be in trouble. Finally, water may be a natural resource which has been threatened, but when the food is not available, we'll all will start feeling pressure. That's what we felt last year. That's what we felt about 6 years ago in 2017. Where people had to be fed, people have to be kept alive, our livelihood had to be made sure so that it will continue our lives moving forward. That's something that we all have to be keeping in mind. So this is what is told in terms of analysis that has been done by the climate scientists in Sri Lanka, not me, climate scientists in Sri Lanka, and to let us know what is there in store for us in the future. This is not something that I'm going to lecture you upon or to let you know upon. This is exactly the reason why water vapor being considered as a greenhouse gas is considered not contributing to the climate change, though all other greenhouse gases are contributing to climate change, being considered as contributor to climate change, because water is a cycle. Water cycle, when it goes up in one end, it goes down from the other end, and is continuously have become to be a cycle. So this is an important point to be kept in mind as well. Water vapor is a greenhouse gas, but not considered as a gas that's contributing to climate change. On the other hand, climate change can impact on the water availability, as we all know. In certain parts of the world, where in other parts of the world, there may be excess water available. So that's a scenario that we have to understand even in Sri Lanka. We all know the Central Highlands changes our agroecological situations and the dry parts and the wet parts of the country given in different seasons, which affects our agriculture, affects our food production, and in certain cases affects the living of human beings. So this science is something that we all have to understand when we go ahead with water and water availability. This is something that we all know, ladies and gentlemen. Where the water is available on Earth and at what level? Oceans take the majority, glaciers take the second important point, and look at the other levels that are extremely important to be known in the case of development of a country like Sri Lanka. As I told you, water is a cycle, and only 0.27 of the Earth's fresh water is available for all living things. including agriculture, including animals, including human beings. And that is the limited quantity, limited volume of this precious resource that will be available for us to consume, for us to make a living, for us to make sure environment is safeguarded, for us to make sure all the biodiversity is conserved. We have to make sure there is a living diversity, isn't it? It's not a dead ecosystem that we are looking at. So this is the limited volume of water that is available to do all those things in terms of production systems and getting ecosystem services being done without being affected. Important point to be kept in mind again when we start making decisions, especially the policymakers start taking decisions on behalf of us. Let's try to make sure they are being educated on these aspects. You and me will be knowing science, but if we do not express science to the policymaker in the way the policymaker cannot understand, we'll never be blaming the policymakers in the future, but we'll be start feeling the impact and start blackguarding everybody. So let's take that decisions. Colleagues, that's an important point to make sure to let people know how water will become an important role player in our day-to-day life. Water scarcity, a word that has come into the scene always. A lot of people say International Water Management Institute is located at the wrong place in the whole world, because for the time being, Sri Lanka looks like doing good in terms of water availability. But in the global scenario, that's an entirely different situation. But still, water scarcity matters a lot. Remember, we are working through a water scarcity through a water cycle. That's where the important point always. Though there be scarcity from here in Sri Lanka, there may be excess available for other people around the globe. That's how this El Nino La Nina concepts also start emerging, as you all know. We all know all these statistics. We have seen, we have read, we have used them in our research work, we have used them in our decision making, like in the project works that you do. You're award winner, I know that, right? By managing a lot of projects related to water. But then the judicious use of the technology, judicious use of the information being made available is the important part. Engineer Alcado, I'm sure you will understand to say that we have a serious problem of lack of information, lack of data, data deficient country with respect to everything. And more importantly, even if data are presented, people lack the capacity of interpreting data. That's where the worst case scenario comes in. Data deficient, okay, we can live with it saying that. We can blame the Department of Meteorology saying that they are not giving us data. That's a different issue. But then, even if data are provided, Shiromani, you will agree with me, the interpretation comes up at different levels. That's where the biggest issue. So who should act with respect to these things? I think with all of us. It's all of us. It's all of us together, understanding what water does to the environment, what water does to the human beings and animal life, and in turn, what we will be doing and what our role play and what the impact of our role play on the water resource that are available in this country. We are proud of 103 river basins in this country, isn't it? We have been talking a lot about it, but still we have started speaking of water scarcity, something that we have to think of, something that we have to go back in the history, do hindcast first and to make sure the forecast being done. And that's where the decision making will work. That's the important part where you and me as an academia, you as engineers in the country who is looking at the interests of water, we'll have to look into and make sure policymakers are guided in the correct way to take decisions on behalf of us, you and me. Otherwise, the term water scarcity will be having added adjectives to make sure how serious it's going to be in the future. So these are important aspects to be considered. We all know about the global water security issues. The word term water security, I don't like it, very frankly. People are talking about food security and people are talking about nutrition security. Nutrition security is part and parcel of food security, but they wanted to draw a line between food security and nutrition security. None of those things prospered because of that. Had nutrition security been there in the food security as the term defines it, we would have gone together, hand in hand, achieving food security while making sure nutrition security is also achieved, because it's part and parcel of food security. Now we have a word called water security. How we are going to draw the line? Where are we going to draw the line with respect to water security without looking at food and nutrition security, for example? is something that we all have to look into. Good terminologies are there. Let them be used. Fine. They have come up, they're being used. But let's make sure this interface between food security and water security will be taken into account. Otherwise, we'll end up nowhere. Water security will go parallelly on the right-hand side, for example. Food security make an effort to go parallelly on the left-hand side. End of the game. Because there'll be no parallels drawn in between. There are no linkages in between if you try to go on separate lanes with respect to security issues. We know food security is national security. Please do remember, food security cannot be achieved without water security. So if these two things do not come together, you will never achieve national security. That's the important thing that all of us will have to keep in mind. So this is about global water security. You all know where Sri Lanka stands in the global map, world map, with respect to this important aspect, which we all have to get together. When I started looking at this data, which was released by the United Nations, I was just wondering how often people have tried to approximate data from African countries to Sri Lanka. Some people talk about gender issues in agriculture, gender issues in water, for example, and try to come up with globalized, or in other words, compartmentalized, or in other words, generalized solutions. Something that we have to look into very carefully. My fervent hope is that let's understand the problem, but don't bring in unnecessary issues into a main issue called water scarcity or water insecurity. So if you try to move on different lines, we lose focus. I'm not blaming women. I'm not blaming men on the other hand, but let's bring in these issues only at the time that they are mostly required. Not just because for the sake of bringing in issues, especially trying to solve the problem in a country like us. So that's a third important point that I want to make. Pollution. Many of the time, Engineer Al-Kadu, when we speak of water, when we speak of environment, we speak of water pollution. This is a classic example for eutrophication in the society. But eutrophication has been taking place for a long period of time, especially in special areas of this country, not everywhere. In special areas of the country, when the soil lacks organic matter, soil is high in say, for example, the sand content is high, when the leaching power is high in a soil, naturally, you will get eutrophication. But there are more things that we have to worry nowadays. There are emerging contaminants. We have been talking about lead poisoning. We'll be talking about lead contamination in the country. We talk of pesticides, we talk of fertilizer, we forget about the number of batteries that we have discarded into the natural environment. Batteries containing lead. Who on the earth have ever counted for that? Who have ever estimated the amount of lead containing batteries that we have thrown out in the environment and contaminated our ecosystems? This is something that we have to be extremely careful. So there are a lot of things that are coming up with water. Pharmaceuticals, pesticides, of course, we know, antimicrobials, flame retardants, you name it, we have it, the contamination. So let's be careful on those things. Don't try to focus on one specific thing because of the personal interest, because we'll lose the track. We'll definitely lose the causal organism. We'll definitely lose the part to identify the real causal organism. So let's try to look at this problem holistically. That's the important part that I want to make at this stage. Don't try to compartmentalize ourselves, at least in here. Let's try to get together physically as well as mentally to make sure these problems are solved. So remember, the emerging threats are much more than the existing or the threats that have been existing in the past with respect to contamination. If you do not focus on this, then there will be other problems. Water challenges. Water security was spoken of. Water challenges. The data that I'm presenting here is 70%. But in the short video that you showed before the session starts, it says 80%. So it's basically 70 to 80%. Let's take it for granted. No one has estimated that perfectly, but that's a range that water has served with respect to agriculture. But definitely, water for food is a challenge. You all know that. If you do not manage water properly and make sure water productivity in agriculture, sorry that I'm biased with respect to agriculture, but water productivity in agriculture is increased. Resource productivity, for example, if you take everything as a source. Water for energy, we have been talking about it a lot. Water for cities, mind you, cities are the consumers of a country like Sri Lanka. The city food system is supported from the rural production. Our peri-urban areas are becoming more urbanized than the urban areas. And whatever the land that is available, whatever the resources that are available is diminishing at a much faster rate in peri-urban areas, affecting the food system in the city. Please do understand. So that is where water resource management comes up as an extremely important event. Not only looking at the hill country, not only looking at the central highlands. There are a lot of areas that we have to look into with respect to agriculture and food production when you bring in water. This urban-rural connectivity will be made stronger, and the city will receive food if the rural areas started producing food, and that also at a higher productivity, at a higher resource productivity. Then and only then this connectivity can be established. Then and only then we'll make sure water plays its role when it comes to city areas providing food. That's an important concept, important practical scenario that we have to understand. So ladies and gentlemen, this is my last slide that I'm going to use. Water sustainability. There are a lot of recommendations, Engineer Al-Kadu, I can bring in, but all those are limited to books in most of the. You are quite correct when you said integrated water resource management, a hot topic at a given time. Even today in the morning at the National Climate Change Policy discussion, this integrated water resource management came up. Nice policy statements are written, but then still, when it comes to practice, it's something that we have to do it together. That's what I said. I do not know how many engineers were there at that particular moment when we start discussing that matter. It's a large number of people. So to me, what is in store for future, looking at the whole problem as an agriculturist, is to make sure the sustainability of this resource being taken care of for the future. We may not have a problem of water scarcity as experienced by many other countries, but we have to manage the resource properly. If you do not manage the resource properly, then forget about the whole story of living. Being a living being requires water to be managed properly. So for me, green growth development plans, water stewardships, and the industrial cooperation, industrial inputs with respect to managing water sustainability becomes an important point. Not easily done, definitely easier said than done. But only way that to be achieved, even the integrated water resource management did not take place in Engineer Al-Kadu because there was no integration. Integration among people, integration among specialists in different areas, but the terminology worked well, not in practice. That's the unfortunate part. Let's not make it happen again. And we have to manage and restore ecosystems for water services and biodiversity. May not be a part of role play of an engineer, but role play of biologists like me, but in consultation, with working together with engineers like you. And water quality from ridge to reef, you know the terminology that's coming from. And more importantly, at least try to make sure there's smart implementation, even at this later stage on this integrated water resource management. So ladies and gentlemen, that's my fervent hope. That's my kind request. Water, manage water for sustainability. And let's make sure that happens on the Water Day of 2023. Thank you very much for your patience here.
Water and society in the change in climate, I think it's a very, you have, Professor Marve, you have explained and highlighted very key points, which one point came into my mind is the interpretation, data interpretation, because now I am living in close to Kalni River. So I know that Met Department and the Irrigation Department is giving some information. Sometimes they say 100 millimeter or 100 millimeter rainfall is coming to West Bank and the Eastern Bank and Central area and all. But poor people who are living both sides of the river, they can't understand what it is and all. And if you can, I think we jointly working and with our projects, we are trying to help you because to quantify the precipitation, no? Quantification, I think with in future you are trying to give with that kind of rainfall, how much volume is coming to downstream, no? At the same time, people like us needs that When there are some 200 or 250 millimeter rainfall in Daranikal, Atiyanthot area, after 6 hours time in Angoda Kalnimulla area get some, say, 3 or 4 feet of water. So then poor people will, keep their valuables to the safer place. So I think the point I got is, that kind of, any layman can understand, no? I think we all are water experts in different disciplines, but I think that kind of things we should try to win. I think Dr. Shiromani, I think you are having very good opportunity now. The bank is giving, funding for you to think and design what you really need. We are not experts on your sector. So anyway, now this is very important thing. Thank you very much for Sir Marbi. And we will go to the next presentation from Engineer Nishant Kamaladasa. And let me introduce Mr. Engineer Kamaladasa. Engineer Kamaladasa is a chartered civil engineer, graduated from University of Moratuwa in 1978. And he has served 22 years in the irrigation department. And I think he has left from the irrigation department and started his own, he's a different kind of person who's trying to, innovate a lot of things. And he got his, he obtained his Masters of Business Administration degree, MBA degree from the PIM Postgraduate Institute of Management. And he worked as a management consultant, Director, Center for Housing Planning and Buildings, CHPB, and was the project director of Sri Lanka Urban Multi-Hazard Disaster Mitigation Project, and CEO of the Distance Learning Center, and led the organization for 10 years until his retirement in 2015. We know that normally we are very familiar with Mr. Engineer Nishant Kamaladasa. He's in the head of Distance Learning Center, and the majority of us attended that programs. Additionally, he has worked as an institutional development consultant for Greater Colombo Wastewater Management Improvement Investment Program. I think special feature of his effort is he has written 10 management books in Sinhala and are authored management titled Management in Sinhala and Social Discourse Vachana Sellang. So various new approaches he has done, and he has written columns for newspapers and produced 2 manuals for the distance education for public servants projects. So with that short introduction, let me invite Engineer Nishant Kamaladasa to deliver his speech.
Good afternoon. I think Professor Buddhi Marambe painted a bit of a gloomy picture with telling dry zone is going to be drier and wet zone is going to be wetter. And as a result, my presentation today will have more relevance than what I thought. Now, our theme today is accelerated change in the water sector. So what I'm trying to say is the first and foremost, for the change to happen, we need to change our mindset. So my focus would be what are the paradigms we need to change so that we can realize this accelerated change. Now, if you look at the current situation, we have been looking at water from where we come from or from where we stand. What does that mean? If we come from the irrigation department, we assume that we have to look after the interest of the farmers, and we look at water in the angle of an irrigation engineer. If we come from the National Water Supply and Drainage Board, we think it has something to do with domestic water. So we have our own prejudices, we have our own thinking, and where we stand, we look at water and say, this is what we see as water. But the problem is, this is a limited vision. I think you all agree, and we would have observed what happens in some of the discussions we have among the different organizations when we meet. So we try to compete with each other, trying to promote our own interest at the expense of the other, because we see water in our own way, in our own angle. But it is necessary that we have to look and capture the larger picture. But what I'm trying to say is, this does not happen because we are bad. This happens for reasons. Let us look at those. We have been looking at water based on our affiliation to different parties. Now, if I come from the irrigation department, I would like to protect the interest of the farmers who have been our friends. We have been working with them. And we would be looking at through colored lenses with certain prejudices in mind. We have set of assumptions which we cling on to, and those are defended, going into a longer length with emotions. This is what I have seen when we discuss among organizations. I think that is why the integrated water management cannot be realized. We become very emotional, and most of the case, in most cases, it is subjective opinions, not the facts. So what I am trying to say is, if we can change this way of thinking so that we can look at water objectively, looking at facts. So what I am going to do today in my presentation, I will present you some facts and try to challenge some of the assumptions that you may be having. So that we can revisit our own prejudices and also set aside our attachments and hatred. Now, I think this is what Lord Buddha has taught us. We have our own attachments to certain parties, we have certain hatred towards others, and therefore we bring in these things when it comes to discussion to the table. For example, we may have attachment to farmers and we may have hatred toward the businesses. Now, these kind of our affiliations and hatred can bring in unnecessary focus into the discussion. Our group, our organization, people we have worked with, and also we like to sympathize with certain downtrodden people, people who are poor, people who are weak, and also we envy towards others. I used to say that we are very sympathetic, and we may give our hand to people who are down to raise them to a level. But we will also be using our same hand to do what? To pull down who are going up and have a level place. So this is in our culture. So that is why when we come to the table, we might try to protect the farmers at the expense of the business people, or at the expense of somebody else. So these are some of the things which we have to take out if we are going to be objective in our work. So having said that, I would ask where water belongs. I think everybody agrees, and I would say it is a national asset. It is not something belong to the irrigation department. It is not something belong to the water board or whatever organization. And it belongs to the country, its ecosystem, and its inhabitants in that same model. Whole country, ecosystems, and its inhabitants. So when inhabitants means all living beings. So this means the environmental flow that is required to maintain and sustain the living system, the habitat, have to be the priority. And then comes the rest of the people and human and also the living beings. It is necessary for us to understand the interdependence, because if some of the living beings extinct, we will also extinct. That is how the nature works. So therefore, it is necessary for us to understand the interdependencies and see that water is provided for everyone, every stakeholder. Sorry. Now, I think this was emphasized in Professor Marbe's presentation now also, sustenance of life and purification and hygiene. Those are the most important things and those are necessary for our survival. But there is another part which is called economic production, starting from agriculture, manufacture, construction, power generation. For all those, we need water. Now the problem is some people argue, if we don't survive, what is the meaning of production? But the problem today is, if we don't grow ourselves, we will not be able to survive. That is what I am trying to stress, because the last crisis told us just survival won't do. We need to grow. Now, for example, if we take agriculture, the rice. Now there was a term called self-sufficiency in rice. I think Professor also said we have achieved self-sufficiency in rice. But let me ask you one question. What are the inputs that we put into the rice production? Seeds are brought from outside, fertilizer brought from outside, imported, pesticides and other agrochemicals are imported, all that is brought from outside. The agriculture machinery and equipment are brought from outside. The fuel, lubricants, all that necessary for agriculture are brought from outside. What else? When we convert paddy into rice, those machines are brought from outside. The energy used for those things are brought from outside. So I'm questioning, what do we mean by self-sufficiency in rice? When everything else have been brought, what do we put into the paddy production? Water, our labor, and land. That's all. Now we claim we are self-sufficient. What I'm trying to argue is, if we don't produce enough exports for us to import all these, starting from seeds up to the machinery and equipment, we will not be able to produce rice. So you just try to prioritize rice and say it is required for survival. It is not the case. Everything has to go in parallel if we are to build as a country. So therefore, I would suggest it is not only the survival, but it is the growth that will ensure your survival. That is something we need to realize. I think we all agree water resources must be developed, they have to be preserved and protected, and finally allocated to different users in a meaningful way. Now, all these are problematic areas. When you start developing, you have to consider the environment. When you try to preserve and protect, you have to have the jungle, you have to fight with the people who cut down the jungle. So there are so many issues. But out of the three, I would say the most controversial is the allocation. This is where we compete with each other. Even other areas we compete, but this is the critical area. How should it be allocated? Who should get the priority? Now, if I am to ask that question, whoever using water right now should get the priority. Whoever who had been using for a long time should get the priority. Then water for purpose of drinking should get the priority. Or water for agriculture, should it get the priority? I mean, if there is a competition, how we are going to allocate? So we will take one by one. whoever using at present, this is the legal status as at today in the country. We call it riparian rights. Legal position is whoever who have been using water should get the privilege of having water. It is logical that one who has been using that should not be deprived. But then, is there a way out? Why? If we have better users, can we reallocate the user, reallocate water? How can we do that if this is the legal status of the country? Simply, we have to get the consent of the people who are using. They should be doing it voluntarily. Second, we have to compensate them adequately if we are going to reallocate, reassign water. Now, rationale for giving, now this is about giving priority for the people who are using it. Now then I'm asking is, should not we give priority for drinking water? People are suffering from different illnesses, and we know there is a CKDU, and why not we give priority to domestic water? A nation should be healthy to produce. Even before allocating it to agriculture, we should give it to the water board. People should be healthy to produce. So that's one thing. So there are arguments for this as well. What about production? When it comes to production, agriculture comes the first. Professor said 70% water is allocated for agriculture worldwide. So rice, among that in Sri Lanka, we consider rice as the priority. What about hydropower? Currently, we had problems and we are now trying to go for renewable energy soon. Is it not a priority? What about other productions other than agriculture? Are we to ignore those things? Probably in that order, you may say. So rationale for agriculture and particularly rice, I would say, why there is a rationale among us? We believe that the farmers are smallholder farmers. They are very weak, they are very poor, and we have to support them. That is one rationale. Second is, agriculture is the backbone of the economy. Therefore, we have to. Third, national sovereignty based on self-sufficiency in food, rice. රටේ ස්වෛරීත්වය තියෙන්නේ ස්වයංපෝෂිත වෙන තාක් පමණයි. We will have sovereignty until that we are self-sufficient. Otherwise, we will have to depend. So these are some of the assumptions I am going to contest. Smallholders. I would suggest that smallholding is the biggest impediment to improve productivity in agriculture. I don't know whether the professor agrees. Very small land holdings, you can't have commercial agriculture with that. I suggest that they should be absorbed to other sectors to make agriculture a productive area. Smallholding promotes subsistence farming, not commercial farming, and keep the people at the lower levels of poverty. So when we say we have to protect the smallholders, we are protecting poverty. We are propagating poverty. We want to prolong poverty. Then truth unknown to many on agriculture as the backbone of the economy. That is another argument. Is it right? That was long ago, not anymore. Contribution of GDP is 4 to 7%. Yes, 7%. Okay. That includes the commercial crops, I hope. Yeah. It has the lowest labor productivity. 33% of the work population producing 4% or 7%. It is not something to be proud. subsistence agriculture is the major contributor to dwindling forest cover, and as a result, so many consequences like, I think you all know these flash floods, droughts, lower reservoir levels, all that happened because of the subsistence farming. Why? Economy is not expanding, and as a result, people have nothing else to do. They go to the forest, clear the forest area and do some cultivation, try to survive. Now then they ask the government, we don't have water, can't you give water? So we horizontally expand the agriculture and at the expense of the forest cover. 29% was the forest cover about 5-6 years back. Now it has dwindled to 23%. And we know the problems as a result. There are elephant-human conflict. There are animals attacking the agricultural areas. There are so many issues because of the forest. Okay, now when it comes to the rice production, I would say the wet zone has a yield of about 1/3 that is produced in the dry zone. I don't know whether my assumption is true. Because dry zone, you don't have a cloud cover, you have a very clear sky, but wet zone is always under a cloud cover, and for several reasons, the yield in the wet zone is very low. But in spite of that, we want the farmers to cultivate rice. And I think our Director General of Irrigation is here, and I overheard from her in a discussion that in Nilwala Ganga, where the rice cultivation, paddy cultivation was not possible, and when they try to promote cinnamon cultivation, there was opposition from Agrarian Services Department because these are meant for rice production. So we try to protect rice to that extent. Our rice per capita consumption is not healthy. We have obesity as a result of this. We could increase our nutritional level by cultivating nutrition-rich crops, but we are not permitted. The permission is not given. The other thing, sovereignty and self-sufficiency, another larger myth. Why? We may starve and die even though we would be self-sufficiency in rice in a crisis situation. Why do I say so? Consider there is a world war and we can't import. But what is the first problem? There won't be fuel for us to transport whatever we produce in Ampara and Polonnaruwa. The people in Colombo will starve because there is no fuel. So unless you have, I think Professor Budimarambe was talking about water self-sufficiency and food self-sufficiency, for water security and food security. They go in parallel. I would say power security also should go in parallel. Otherwise, the issues will not be solved. We bank on many imports to produce rice. I talked about it. These are. So sovereignty again is a myth, or a half truth, I would say, if not a myth. Why there is reluctance or less interest in providing water for industry? We don't like. Why? We have prejudices. Company owners are rich. They don't need any support from us. Given the slightest opportunity, they will rip the farmers off. They will rip the conventional users off and will grab water. We are scared. They are waiting to exercise the power of money to get water. We should not give in to them. They are not worthy self-serving individuals and companies. So we envy, we have a hatred towards them. While we sympathize with the farmers, we have hatred. So this is the equation. So reallocation, reassignment is not possible because of this. Let us look at it in a different manner. They are efficient in their operations. They produce jobs. They could absorb youth who otherwise would be in less productive occupations. They can capture supply chains comparatively easily and get better prices. So they could get needy foreign exchange for us. Can't we look at businesses, the industry, as something useful for the country? When are we going to do that? This is what I'm questioning. The problem of non-expansion of other sectors. We had 2 insurrections in this country, in the south, and we had a 30-year protracted war. If you look at the economic reasons behind, there could be social and political reasons I'm not going to talk about. But if you only look at economic reasons, the very reason was non-expansion of the economy. And people did not have enough job opportunities. They did not have enough education opportunities. They did not have employment opportunities. That was the reason. So if we try to not facilitate businesses, we are really again putting a blanket over this issue. Again, some statistics, 24% of our workforce is outside the country. 24%, one-fourth closely. And 60% of the youth, when they were surveyed by the Colombo University, between 18 and 25, before the crisis, they said they want to migrate or they want to go out of the country in search of jobs. That was what they say. 60% at that time. If you now ask how many will be prepared to go, maybe 90%. Why? We are not expanding our economy. Now, can we be with the traditional thinking and not think about this change? This is the question I'm asking. Land fragmentation continues in the village. Land fragmentation continues in the villages. Horizontal expansion I discuss about. So very small plots of land. Yeah, okay. I think we need to give land back to the wildlife and forest, at least part of the land. This was done in South Korea long ago. Their forest cover was 29%, like us, and they were able to increase it to 60%, close to 60, 67% or something. How did they do that? They got the subsistence farmers to cultivate the forest areas, and they created jobs in the cities, and they brought the people to the cities. That is how they did it. The bleak picture painted by Professor Buddhi Marambe says that we need to do this again in our country as well. So how to do that? That is the important question. So in summary, I should say we bank on myths and half-truths in taking our decisions in water allocation. Okay, I'm asking these questions. Can we use different technologies which could save water and give it to new users while increasing the productivity and the income levels? Can we have incentives to preserve water? Can we have disincentives to prevent wasting water? Can we make mechanisms to transfer water from current users to new users who are pressing for water? there could be a technological solution. Currently, we bank on gravity irrigation. Can we think of solar power driven lift irrigation? We bank on open canals right now. Can we bank on pipe driven systems? Water applications susceptible to waste? Currently, can we go for a drip and sprinkler kind of irrigation? Difficult to control the other inputs. There are higher wastages. Can we have a system where it is easy for us to control the inputs? Open fields exposed to pest and bird attacks. Can we have greenhouses? But why this is not possible? This conversion from traditional agriculture to commercial agriculture should happen. Why it is not happening? Because we are unnecessarily protecting the traditional agriculture by giving utter false reasons. This is the question I'm trying to raise. Higher O&M cost with canals, with pipes, you have less O&M cost. So the technological change can make things better for us, for all of us. And we can have a win-win situation if we do that. Not only the farmers could have water, but also the other users can also have water. So can we think technologies which will provide us at least equal amount of or fair share of water for every stakeholder? Now that is what should be our thinking. I have so many things to add, but then I think at this moment, because of the time, my time has, I thought of winding up, but yeah, okay. This is one slide where they have tried the drip and sprinkler irrigation. They say 50% water saving, 40% savings on other inputs. That is their experience. So if we can do that, that would be better. Okay. When we allocate, there are two methods, because moderator is giving me some more life. I will take 2-3 more minutes because of that. There are two ways of reallocating water. One way is to create water rights and a water market. Other way is to appoint a regulator. Either way, you can achieve reallocation, reassignment. But let us compare the two. If you use market forces, consent is the key. The farmer can negotiate at what price and what quantity to sell with the person who buys. Then no intermediaries are required. But when it comes to central regulation, there would be problems. Parties are compelled. Consent becomes secondary. Regulator can decide. Bribery and corruption can come in. Political interference, as we have experienced in our country, can come in. So there are two ways of allocating, either the market forces or the central regulation. You could also have a mix. You can have a market force, and also in certain times you can go for regulation as well. There can be a mixed economy, like there can be a mixed water market and a mixed regulatory system. But whatever it is, there has to be some way to divert water from economically inefficient areas to economically efficient areas. That is the only way the country can prosper. I think with that, let me conclude my presentation. I have tried to give you some controversial facts and try to challenge some of the assumptions that you may be having, and all for the sake of a developed country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Nishantha Kamaladasa. During your presentation, you have brought number of critical issues for each one of us to think, not now, take all these points, you know, keep it, and we should try to understand the validity and the acceptability of most of the things. So one point is smallholder, you know, farmers, and what is their contribution to the overall economy, and whether we are trying to eliminate or reduce the poverty with that kind of approach. So all these things are, I think, not now, but it is good to think ourselves, each one of us, I think, in this today's, I think, Water Day theme also, you know, accelerate change. So I think each one of us has to play a role with this kind of situation. I think we know that country is facing various kind of difficulties, economic crisis and all. I think better to think about now. We know that tax issues and various, you know, aragala and all. But with all that, we have to try to change. So that is very much needed. I think, Lakshmi, any? How many minutes? Okay, okay, sure.
Every year, pollution kills millions
Every
of people
year,
around
pollution
the world.
kills millions
That's
of people
because we
around
breathe
the
in
world.
toxic air.
That's
We
because
eat
we
fish
breathe in
laden with
toxic air.
mercury,
We eat
and we drink
fish
from-
laden with mercury, and we drink from rivers clogged with plastics. These problems issues are so common, we've begun to accept them. But did you know that you have a right to a clean environment? Every day, people can use the law and their purchasing power to press governments and businesses to respect Mother Nature. Water. We all have a right to clean water, but every day, 2 billion tons of waste is dumped into our rivers, lakes, and oceans. That causes diseases that contribute to the deaths of millions of people every year. How can you fight water pollution? In many places, you've the right to access water quality data and to demand that your water is free from pollution. With clean water, our food will be better, our communities will be happier, and our children will be healthier, allowing them to spend more time in school and giving them a brighter future. Pollution affects almost every aspect of life on Earth. But when people exercise their environmental rights, we have a fighting chance to beat pollution and to ensure the health of our planet. Do your part. Claim your right to a safe and healthy life. It is our human right.
Participants are connected through Zoom, and so there is a, you know, that shows the interest of our colleagues. And now we can go to the last presentation. Our last speaker is Dr. Shiromani Javadana. Let me very briefly introduce her. Dr. Shiromani Javadana obtained a PhD degree from Open University of Sri Lanka in 2016, and she completed Masters of Science in Meteorology from the University of Hawaii in USA in 2007. In 2003, she obtained a postgraduate diploma in satellite meteorology, global climate from the Center for Space Science and Technology Education in Asia and Pacific. She earned a basic degree, that BSc degree in physics from the University of Peradeniya, Sri Lanka in 1996. With over 24 years experience in meteorology, Dr. Shiromani is currently serving as the Director of Meteorology in the department, Sri Lanka, and engages in several international and national technical committees related to climate change, adaptation, and climate services, including being a member of the IPCC task group on gender, a member of the monsoon panel's working group on Asian Australian monsoon of WMO, World Climate Research Program, and a member of the Technical Steering Committee of South Asia Climate Outlook Forum. Also, she is visiting researcher at the Center for Australian Weather and Climate Research, Australia, with publication in several peer-reviewed journals and international conferences. Research interests include climate variability, intra-seasonal variability, tropical cyclone, storm surge, climate change, seasonal forecasting, heavy rainfall events, and Asian monsoon with over 25 research papers, extended abstracts, paper presentations in seminars, symposiums, 3 chapters published in these fields. I think she has a lot of publications. So with that short introduction, let me invite Dr. Shiromani Javadana to deliver her speech. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for nice introduction. And first of all, I'd like to thank my friend Janaki for inviting me this Water Day celebration. So today I'm going to talk about how we can utilize different forecasts, like at different time scales, from days to months to years to centuries in water management. What are the opportunities we have and what are the challenges and way forward. So first, when we discuss about water management, we cannot ignore the extreme events related to water. So this figure actually I got from latest publication from World Meteorological Organization. So they consider last 50 years mortality and economic losses from hydrometeorological disasters. You can see first one is the reported disasters. So reported disasters have been increased by a factor of 5. But the mortality has reduced by 30% due to improvements in early warning as well as disaster management and water management. And then if we consider the economic loss, it also increased, and highest number of deaths occurred due to droughts, and followed by storms, and nearly equal number of deaths occurred due to floods as well as extreme temperatures, that means warm temperatures as well as cold temperatures. So overall, if we consider all the disasters happening from 1970 to 2090, that last 50 years, including man-made disasters as well as chemical disasters, 50% of them are hydrometeorological disasters, and 45% deaths also occurred due to hydrological disasters and hydrometeorological disasters, and 74% of economic loss is due to this weather, climate, water related hazards. So what are the climate, how can we do climate informed decision making? So like Professor Marabe mentioned, so with the changing climate, now we can, the disasters are increasing, a number of disasters as well as extreme events. So it has implication on health, water, livelihood, food security. So we need tailored products and information. So the different users can make decision based on this information. So especially like in terms of water management, so hydrological and weather and hydrologic forecast can help to manage water more effectively and minimize the risk from future extreme floods as well as drought. The forecasters, if we consider the last decade, the skill of the forecast, so accuracy of forecasts are improved significantly, especially now we have high temporal resolution as well as spatial resolution, but it is underutilized in management decisions. What are the seamless forecast services? That means from hours to days to months to years to centuries. So like Professor Marabe mentioned, so we in 2016 we developed this future climate projections based on CMIP 5 data. Now with the 6th assessment report of IPCC, we have new sets of models. So we are trying to downscale those into Sri Lanka, and future you can get new sets of future projections. And then we have like monthly and seasonal predictions based on probabilistic predictions. And then we have again weekly forecast from 4 weeks to up to 6 weeks. And then we have medium range forecast from up to 9 days, and early warnings and real-time information. So all this information we can use to make decisions at different stakeholders, like for example, like centuries or decadal, we call it future projections. So this information can use for development of policies and infrastructure planning. And then when it's come to short range, it required for operational planning, disruption planning, and emergency responses. But always we need to know about the accuracy of this forecast. So this figure shows us in weather and climate systems, we have different spatial and temporal scales. Like we have very small area, we can have few minutes turbulence, and up to 100 kilometer we have thunderstorms, 10 to 100 kilometer area, which lasts several hours. Then we have cyclones. Usually cyclones last up to 7 days, but recently there was a cyclone called Freddy, which lasts 36 days, and actually a few days before it crossed Mozambique, and so it break the record actually. And then next from 14 days up to 30 days. So we have very low predictability. We call it predictability desert. If you want to know what is going to happen in maybe April 5th, we cannot predict. It's under the predictability desert. And then we have seasonal predictions, which is not very good, but we can have some fair predictions. And then we have climate projections, what is going to happen in next 150 or 50 years. That also we have a lot of uncertainty, because we don't know exact greenhouse gas concentration during that time. So these skills, like if we consider the weather forecast up to 10 days, shorter the lead time, we have high accuracy, but as the lead time goes, then accuracy become poor. So for drought management, planning of agricultural operations, and then we discuss about water needs and how we can meet this water needs. We can use this weekly and monthly forecast, and especially this sub-seasonal forecast we call from weeks to month, that predictability desert. It is not sufficient for water resource managers, but in Sri Lanka we found that this Madden-Julian oscillation, which usually develop in the near equatorial region of the West Indian Ocean and propagates along the equator towards the Pacific Ocean. And this, when this Madden-Julian oscillation is in the Indian Ocean, it enhances our rainfall, and when it's in the Pacific Ocean, it suppresses our rainfall. With that, we have some sort of small scale, especially Sri Lanka, because we are located very close to equator, and this Madden-Julian oscillation can predict up to like its behavior up to like maybe 6 weeks. So with that, some sort of predictability skill we have, especially for Sri Lanka. So then how can we use these different forecasts for water resource management? Usually we want deterministic forecast. Actually, the quantity of whether we can get 25 millimeter, 100 millimeter quantity. But because the models cannot predict atmosphere itself using sets of equations based on conservation of mass, momentum and energy, it's very difficult to predict entire behavior of the atmosphere in computer models, especially if we consider this map. So this Sri Lanka, so these are the surface observations. So we have a lot of data sparse region. The skill of the model is highly depending on the present status of the atmosphere, which gives us from the different observations. So if we don't have enough observations, so we have to put some value, like estimated value for the models. So exactly like, for example, between Sri Lanka and Indonesia, we don't have enough data, so we have to give some value based on our observation and Indonesian observation. So this value can change. So that's we call ensemble prediction system. So we change that present status of the atmosphere where we don't have data slightly, and we run models for several phenomena, so we can get different sets of scenarios. Maybe like tomorrow rain, we can get like 50 sets of scenarios, and based on that we can give probabilistic forecast. Most of the countries, even for tomorrow rain, they give like 70% of chance of having thunderstorms or rain at a particular this time. So it's mostly now people are going for this probabilistic forecast, because there is uncertainty. We cannot exactly predict exact amount with computational constraints we have right now. So this ensemble simulation produces range of possible future outcomes. So users can understand the uncertainty based on that. So then, especially like I mentioned earlier, beyond 2 weeks, we are the predictability desert. So it's the more meaningful information cannot be provided. But then seasonal forecast, especially it is linked with the teleconnections like El Nino, La Nina, Indian Ocean dipole and those things. So we can provide some sort of information which can be used for this water resource management. So what are the opportunities we have and what are the challenges? First, now there are so many models, like we have a lot of accessibility for this model. If we go to like in there are a lot of web platforms like Windy, Meteor Blue, like several platforms where you can easily access these models and see what is the rainfall maybe like next few days. And then we have like the spatial resolution and temporal resolution has tremendously improved during last 10 years. Earlier actually we had like 100 kilometer resolution. Resolution is one box, so this type of box, one value we can provide. So the smaller the box, we can have more detailed information, but then we have to increase the time steps. So the computers don't have enough power to run have smaller time steps. So that constraint there. And then especially like it is very important to combine meteorological inputs with the hydrological land surface data, like soil moisture data, water level data. Otherwise we cannot predict hydrological forecast. And then with this improvement, still we don't have enough observations, and we have to have quality observations. Like for example, everybody asks, why don't you use satellite information? Satellite measure the radiance emitted by Earth's surface or reflected by the solar radiation. So this radiance we need to convert into another meteorological parameter like temperature, pressure. So when we convert this, there can be a lot of errors. So if we input the some wrong value into the model, which create very wrong erroneous forecast. So we have to quality control and the observation network need to be dense. And then in Sri Lanka, we have like Sri Lanka located in the Indian Ocean, so ocean we don't have observations, very sparse observation, like we can have weather buoys and a weather ship data, so very limited observations we have. And in addition to that, we are located closer to equator, so we get lot of energy, so our atmosphere is always changing. So this short term changes cannot be resolved in the computer models. Other thing is like there are lack of understanding in some weather system inherent to a tropical region. So considering all these things, so we these things hinder our accuracy of our weather forecasting. So here some examples of the predictability of extreme rainfall event. So this is extreme rainfall event occurred in November 8th, 2021. So if you remember, this northwestern part received more than 300 millimeter rain, and this prediction is a special product called 99 percentile forecast, ECMWF. They convert needed rainfall into point rainfall. Actually, this is they did this in the post processing. After they get the direct input from the model, when they process this, they use our historical information, and they use lot of newest techniques, big data handling like artificial intelligence, deep learning, machine learning, and those things. And then they convert into the point rainfall. So this 99 percentile point rainfall, these color scales are same. So it indicates this heavy rain over this northwestern part. This is 3 days prior to this event. And then same day, because this rain occurred in the afternoon, in the morning, the normal rain, our forecast also model predicted heavy rain over this area. There's a slight change in the location, but when we consider the amounts, same amount of rainfall predicted by the model. And second one is, this is again last year, August 1st to 3rd, especially these western slopes of the Central Hills receive a significant amount of rain from 1st, 2nd and 3rd August, like about 200 millimeter rain for consecutive 3 days. And then this is extreme forecast index. Like I mentioned earlier, we have ensemble predictions like different initial values equals present status of the atmosphere. We use different sets of information and run the model. And if most of the models predicted heavy rain over this region, so it gives us some sort of index. If that red color indicate above 0.6 values, that means there can be unusual weather or very unusual or very extreme weather. So this also like 31st July we saw this one, and we call a stakeholder meeting and we inform. And these are the amounts. So this is actual rainfall. The amounts are like we did not receive that. The spread is more. The larger aerial extension is more, but anyway, we received about 200 millimeter rain over these hydrocatchment areas, 1st, 2nd and 3rd August. And there are like new regional cooperation, they provide this flash flood outlook. So it also provided us some sort of flash flood can occur over this area. Actually, they provide this on 2nd August, but we receive heavy rain from 1st August onwards. So when we convert it into the actual impact, so this is the extreme index forecast values, and this is the area we got the impact. This is the impact of people. So more than 1,000 people impact over this 3 regions, this Ambagamua, DST, and Nuwara, and another maybe Gangawata Koralaya. And so this the hazard indicates high probability of having extreme rainfall. And so it will match. So this is based on actual 31st data. But not all, some events they cannot predict. So this is the May 13th 2021 event. So we received more than 300 millimeter rainfall over western parts of Sri Lanka, but the models did not indicate. It indicate only 44 millimeter rain, and this extreme forecast index also only give us very low probability for extreme rainfall events. So for this type of events, we need to go for real-time information. So these are the 10-minute rainfall on the Attanagalu. So we can see from 2:30 onwards, we received heavy rain, and we managed to issue warnings at 10 in the morning based on the satellite information and other information. So the forecast accuracy are depending on, especially numerical weather prediction model forecast accuracy depend on several factors. First one is the initial conditions. What is the present status of the atmosphere? For that, we need to have a lot of very dense information network. And then second one is especially that small scale phenomena like thunderstorms. So which the aerial extension is like 10 to maybe 30 kilometer. So these type of phenomena usually cannot result in numerical weather prediction because especially based on the limitation with the resolution of the model. And then some atmospheric phenomena, we don't fully understand the theoretical background behind these phenomena. So there are some limitations in the numerical weather prediction. So verification and evaluation of the models also very important for users. So if we have verification, so they know that this model has verified, then it can have some sort of model skill we can provide. So this is, we run to one model weather research model for 5 kilometer, and ECMWF we have access, and we have 9 kilometer resolution data from ECMWF. So when we compare this correlation with the observation, model correlation with model prediction and daily observation, we can see high correlations in ECMWF than high resolution with the research model. So the skill score also with the, this is based on the rainfall threshold. So when we have heavy rain, the skill has lowered. We have very lower skill, but for a small precipitation, we have high skill. And then Professor Marabe also discussed about this 2017 drought. So this is the standardized precipitation index. We developed this based on the rainfall data. This is a good indicator for meteorological drought, not hydrological or agricultural drought. For meteorological drought, it indicates these colors like from this yellow to dark red. It gives like mild dry, moderately, severely, and extremely dry. So this is based on December 2016. This is El Nino year. Actually 2015 and 2016 are El Nino years. So by December, we can see a very extremely dryness over. This is 6-month SPI, which indicates soil moisture. And longer time scale SPI indicate the water levels also. And this 6 assessment report provide us red warning with the changing climate. So these are some facts. The recent concentration of carbon dioxide is the highest from last 2 million years. And sea level is rising in fastest is last 3,000 years. And lowest level of Arctic ice in last 1,000 years, and glacier retreats is unprecedented from if we consider last 2,000 years. So we can have, because of this changing climate, we will have extreme heat events, heavy rainfall events, drought, fire weather, and ocean acidification. So are we ready for this type of extreme events? So here I have taken some examples for well-developed countries. This is actually 2021, July 15th, after 15 to 18. So this Germany received a significant amount of rainfall, and because of the flood occurred in that area, nearly 200 people died because of this event. So this is happening in Western Europe, where they have highly sophisticated equipment, weather equipment, as well as they have, for whole Europe, they have European flood awareness system, which provide all the information necessary early warnings. But 200 people died in Western Europe in year 2021. So this event indicates the monumental failure in the early warning system in Europe, as well as they said even though that early warnings were generated, it was not taken seriously, and preparedness is not adequate. The second one is actually on the in China. Again, 20th July 2021, massive rainfall occurred in Century City, and their annual rainfall is around 640, but that annual rain, more than annual rain, they got within 3 days time. And out of that annual rain, 50% occurred in 6 hours, and 30% of annual rain occurred in 1 hour. That is 200 millimeter rain occurred between 4 to 7. So people are leaving for their home from their work during that time. So all caught in this massive flood. And so we need to know about the adaptation part, because our adaptation chairman, former chairman, is here. And actually in 2018, they spent like US dollar 7.7 billion to build that Century City as a sponge city. The sponge city concept is when they have flood, it absorb that water and they can retake that water during the drought. But with this event, so this especially climate friendly sponge city concept also put into the test. And this is in future, actually earlier JICA promised us to grant 2 weather radars, but with the inflation now they can only provide us only 1 weather radar. With this weather radar we can get 10 minutes rainfall intensity maps. Every 10 minutes we can provide, and especially water managers can utilize that. They promise to provide us 1 hour forecast based on this weather radar. And then this dissemination, actually water management, climate resilience water management project provide us web-based tool we call GIS tool. So because most of the time irrigation department, they ask us, we need to know about the predictions on different water basins, so river basins. So this is that depression crossed Sri Lanka in early February. So this is Yanoya. So this is the prediction. Actual rainfall occurred little bit west to this point over this Vaunia region. More than 150 millimeter occur on that day. And then like Mr. Alakanda mentioned earlier, so we have to go for like from 50 millimeter rain or 35 knots wind, from moving from what weather will be to what weather will do. We have to go for impacts. We call it impacts-based warning and forecasting. So with the PRESS MPA project, we are planning to go for this impact-based forecasting and warning services in future. Here we try to convert that rainfall into impacts, like whether these roads will be inundated. And for that, actually, we need to work together with irrigation department because we don't have facility to run flood models. So based on our rainfall prediction, they have to run the flood models and then combine and landslide. NBR also have to run their landslide models, and then we can provide this impact-based forecast in future. So this impact-based forecasting, we need lot of information. It's GIS-based platform. So first we need like climate information, weather predictions, and then supplementary information like hotspots, hazard maps, and those things. Then we have to add exposure data, vulnerability data, and then combining all these together, we can predict hotspots and highly vulnerable people and more high risk area based on that social vulnerability also. So this is one example. This is cyclonic Amphan, which crossed Bangladesh in May 2020. So we can see this population hotspots in red, and then here the agricultural production and value of the agriculture, value of the production. So before the landfall, so this track prediction, we can provide this information about the agricultural production value, production quantity, irrigation facilities, and those kind of things. And that August 2002 event, we try to use that with this exposure data and sensitivity data and lack of adaptive capacity. So we got this information from 2012 statistics. These statistics are different, changed by now, but as we have this data, we try to find out the risk. So this is the hazard we identified earlier based on this is the extreme index forecast, highest probability of heavy that extreme rain, and this is actual rain occurred, so it's coincide well. And so this is the hazard based on that extreme events, and this is the impact area and deaths, missing, and this is the risk area using hazard, exposure, and vulnerability. But unfortunately, this Gangawata coral layer was under low risk area, but it was a highly impacted area. So maybe the data we have is too old because it's 2015 data. And then my last slide, so like Professor Marabe mentioned, so the El Nino is predicted by the during southwest monsoon from July onwards. So this is the impact. So during southwest monsoon, if we have El Nino, so especially these western slopes of the central hills where our hydropower generation, hydropower reservoir is located, get less rain. And then in second inter monsoon, October, November, we get more rain. Blue color indicate more rain. And again, if this El Nino is continue for next year, we get less rain during northeast monsoon. So water management have to have very critical decisions. They have to control flood during second inter monsoon, and they have to have enough water for the northeast monsoon next end of this year, next year. So this is the present status of the Pacific Ocean. So you can see now the La Nina was there, and now La Nina is weakening, and so you can see that El Nino is emerging over this one. This is a prediction. So by it will become 60% chance of having El Nino by August, September, October period. That is latter part of the monsoon and early part by the latter part. So definitely we can expect more rain due to second in the monsoon, but after that less rain in the northeast monsoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you very much, Dr. Shiromani Javadana. This very important and very detailed presentation, little bit high tech, but that part has to be done. You are the experts and your meteorologists are the experts to analyze and run the models and all, but at the same time, as we discuss, the interpretation or the impact-based forecasting will be very useful in future. And I am happy really to listen that hear that you are using ECMWF and try to give little accurate. So since we started jointly with you that to provide that software, but now you are continuing with your own funds, no? So that should be the way. Most of the time projects provide lot of facilities, but the agencies are not going to accept it. They say the budget, the treasury is not providing money. You are the experts. You have to tell them. If you give them, these are the benefits. Like, so I'm happy to hear that. At the same time, you have shown two examples. One is in China and that annual rainfall received within 3 days, and how that in again Germany, and that also gives some message, because whatever the facilities we are having, so that uncertainty is there, but we have to improve little, further. So anyway, now we have come to the end of these 3%, but we are having two discussions. So I would quickly introduce them. One is our friend Engineer Deepti Sumanasekara is our former General Manager of the Water Board in WSTB, and he graduated from Peradeniya Engineering Faculty in 1982. And in 2001, he got some IHE master's degree. As an engineer specializing in water supply and sanitation, he presented numerous technical papers at various international and national events throughout his career and with the NWSTB. Deepti Sumanasekara is a fellow member of the ISL. He has recently retired from his service. And let me introduce second person, Engineer Tushar Disanayaka, Chartered Civil Engineer with over 20 years experience in irrigation department, specialized in water resources engineering. He holds BSc Engineering degree from University of Peradeniya and MBA from Commonwealth. Engineer Tushar has worked on various irrigation department branches and construction projects, including Himbilia Irrigation Infrastructure Development Project. Presently, he serves as the Director Planning and Designs, Uva and Eastern Zone at the Irrigation Department. So over to you, Deepti and Tushar.
With your consent, in us, we divided the task into two. So I will give some overview on all three presentations, and he will highlight some of the key points came up during the presentations. Before that, I just want to say a few words about the World Water Day. Since its inception in 1992 in Rio de Janeiro, World Water Day has been acting as an eye-opening event, or rather a catalyst in solving issues prevailing in water and environmental sector. It always promoted the responsible use of water while encouraging access to water by everyone from rich to poor. This year, the theme, every year it fixes a particular theme in order to bring the attention of the entire world. And this year the theme is accelerating change to solve water and sanitation crisis. There are three important words in this topic. One is the acceleration. Why acceleration? Which means that the speed we are moving ahead is not sufficient. So we need to act more faster. And the second thing, they talk about the crisis. Crisis in the sense, now we can't wait anymore. We need to look for solutions and act fast. And the most happiest thing for me is that this time they have included the word the sanitation, which has been totally ignored during past many years. So mostly one or twice they included the word wastewater and so on, but this is the first time they included sanitation because it's very important. Sanitation goes along with water hand in hand in country development. When we look at the presentations done here today, we saw that the three presentations focused on three different aspects of the World Water Day agenda. Professor Marambe's presentation was a very specific one, promoting the water resources management as the best approach to manage the sensitive water resources. And Engineer Kamaladasa's presentation was directly focusing on this year's theme, water. However, some of the points he highlighted are common to sanitation sector as well. Dr. Javadana focused on facilitation of water management decision making by forecasting weather scenarios in order to minimize the probable risk. Very technical one. And so if I start with Professor Marambe's presentation, it was a very sentimentally highlighted the available solutions within the society in meeting up the challenges happening under climate change. In addition to the water issues, poor policy decisions has affected, it seems, the agriculture in the country. That's very true. While highlighting and updating some of the facts about the water availability and scarcity, he clearly presented the magnitude of the issue. El Nino may land on us at any moment. Be prepared. We can't be wasting time here listening to wonderful presentations, and we need to go and act fast. As he said, our water resources are now contaminated with many new elements, very important, which will be a serious issue in near future, putting water sustainability and usability in question. Yes, we need to take prompt actions. His final requested was to promote preserving water resources in addressing the issue. I'll go fast. Engineer Kamaladasa stated in his presentation, assessing the current situation, highlighting the need to move from individual to holistic approach by doing away subjective opinions, sympathy on individuals, and without being emotional. It is very true in the case of sharing common resources. We have experienced that. He highlighted that water resources shall be developed, preserved, and protected collectively while allocating to intended users in a meaningful manner. That's a very sensitive statement he made. Though we are considered to be a water-rich country, there are issues with the availability with respect to time and location. This is where most of these sharing issues come up and taken up for discussion individually and in groups. However, timely and impartial decision-making is not happening most of the time, unfortunately, due to individualism or sectorial selfishness. We are supposed to keep everybody happy, including present users, while allocating a reasonable share for human consumption as a matter of right and focusing global targets we have committed as a country. He also highlighted some of the inherited issues in the agriculture sector. The need of reduction of inefficient agriculture, very agreeable. And also it is very true that we need to shift from conventional agriculture to a more modernized practices, reducing the waste in order to save water for the other users. He proposed two mechanisms for water allocation decision making, two market forces, naturally, or a central regulator. But how far the central regulator will be impartial is in a question with our experience we gathered in the society. I believe that this valuable proposal shall be taken up for further discussion whenever it's possible with the higher authorities. And water sharing issues mostly come in droughts when there is a water shortage. During a flood, this issue converts to a managing a disaster, assisting everybody affected equally in a different way. Forecasting climate extremes in order to mitigate water-related disasters was very well discussed in Dr. Javadana's presentation. Very interestingly, she presented the situation in last 50 years highlighting the relationship among reported disasters, economic losses, and death toll in disaster situations. Very interestingly, in contrast to the occurrence increment by 5-fold, death toll has gone down by 70%. Thanks, well done. We need to congratulate the authorities on that, not only here, in everywhere in the world. Everybody knows that the climate prediction in the country has improved a lot today compared to in the past. The degree of accuracy is still in a question due to lack of data, as she explained, and also our locality. We are only a single small point in the big world, so it is very difficult to predict the climate behavior. Very interestingly, she highlighted the need of moving from broadcasting what the extreme weather will be to what will be the extreme weather will do, or the repercussions of that. So, which means the physical result of the extreme weather. Sorry, I'm having a terrible cough. Instead of telling the community about the precipitation or the rainfall, so let us tell them that because of there will be 100 millimeter rainfall, but such and such road will be inundated by that such and such time, and that people in such low elevated areas will have to move out or something like that. Because the people will not understand mostly the 200 millimeter, 100 millimeter. They know that it's a little bit higher, but they know don't know the limitations. But fortunately, we hear that when they talk about wind in news. In the news, they say the wind there will be a wind 200 kilometers per hour or something. And also in the meantime, they say there will be waves 2 meters high, and they warn the fishermen. That is how it should happen, as you said. I understood. Similarly, when the drought is predicted, duration of the drought will also be important in order to reserve available water resources by the authorities for intended purposes and save lives. So with that, I will conclude my the discussion, and over to you, Suresh, to continue with that.
Thank you, Engineer Deepti. From all these three presentations, the final message I got was we need rapid change everywhere. Actually, our theme is we need accelerated change, but I would like to add the word everywhere based on these presentations, because water is connected to everything. So we cannot think of any entity without, omitting the need of water. So, Professor, now you mentioned about self-sufficiency in rice production in Sri Lanka, but according to the FAO statistics, we are wasting about 4,000 tons of food every day. So that contains a considerable, huge amount of virtual water. So, do you like to comment on that? Do you say that it is normal in any country, or?
Thank you very much. I didn't expect a question, but I'm glad that you came forward with that question. The studies carried, I'm not referring to FAO data, but studies carried out by Agriculture Engineering Department at Peradeniya very categorically says that the household waste is about 10%. Restaurant waste between 15 to 30%. And a buffet waste is 50%. So that's a level of food waste that we have. I'm not trying to say it is normal, but that's sheer ignorance of our part as well. So that's something that we have to cut short at every cost. I mean, that's something that we can achieve. I didn't say self-sufficiency. I never used the word self-sufficiency. That's not the word to be used in a country scenario. I always said we produce more than what we can consume. That's the term that I use, not self-sufficiency. That's an entirely different connotation. Okay, so, but anyway, as you quite correctly said, I'm not trying to say it's a normal scenario and leave it as it is. No, every effort will have to be made for whatever the waste that we commit every day in our day-to-day life should be minimized. And that should start from the household. Don't wait until the hotels do that. Let's start from the household, because at least if you can reduce that 10%, that's going to add a massive benefit to the overall society. For example, We imported, as I told you, about 783,000 metric tons of rice just last year in order to support our food consumption, depending on the demand that we have. Suppose we minimize the losses at household level, the pressure on the importation and pressure on the foreign exchange would have been much less. If we stop wastage at the restaurant level, the pressure would be much, the lowering pressure will have a bigger impact. And if the hotel level buffet wastage can be minimized at least by 50% out of the 50% loss, you can simply imagine at what level of ease that would have been there for foreign exchange expenditure in Sri Lanka. So that's something that we all have to work together to make sure that reduction takes place quickly as possible.
Thank you. Another pathetic situation. Now, we are talking of food production in the country. Still, 15% of our children suffer from malnutrition. So, Engineer Kamaladasa mentioned that we should have healthy people to produce. If our younger generation, a considerable portion of our younger generation suffers from malnutrition, how can we be satisfied with our effort?
We are not satisfied at all. But please do remember, a lot of myths that work around has contributed to this malnutrition component as well. And mismanagement of the overall system has also contributed to malnutrition. Malnutrition is not something that we see tomorrow. Now look at what's happening in the country right now. The much required protein supplement, eggs, are sold at an unaffordable prices to people right now. Just a year ago, to the school meal, the total value of school meal, including an egg, the allocation of the government of Sri Lanka was 60 rupees per child. Now, price of an egg alone is more than 60 rupees. So just look at the scenario that has created in this country. It's very unfortunate. Why? One of the main reasons for that to happen is Sri Lankan government ignored the value of maize production in Sri Lanka, so that it affected the animal feed availability and finally affecting the much required chicken or poultry production in the country. So it's a meat that got affected and egg production that got affected. So this is a holistic thing. You simply cannot look at the chicken meat production alone or egg production alone. If you do not provide the feed requirement coming into picture properly, then the overall system fails. In order to make sure that happens, you have to make sure that maize production will prosper in this country. So that's something, as I told you, starting from the base, the crop production, you have to make sure the continuum is there so that finally eggs can be produced at a cheaper or affordable price to people. We cannot be happy. From production aspects, yes. When it comes to protein malnutrition, it has been a long-lasting game in Sri Lanka. I don't think it happened last year. Even before we had the problem of malnutrition, it has got aggravated because of the situation that we created just last year, because of the decisions that we took a year ago. Unfortunate scenario, but then remember, the solution is not in sight right now. Bringing in eggs from India is not going to solve our problems, may add to the problem further, because we all know that India has been identified as a country that is affected with bird flu. And just 2 days ago, there was news item saying that even Tamil Nadu area, where the eggs are to be imported, have got bird flu in the last 2 months. So that's why there's an issue right now. We want to bring down eggs. Not to be happy, still our protein malnutrition case is there, and we have to take gradual measures, not a rapid measure, gradual measures to make sure this impact will not last long. Do remember, any issue that takes place with respect to protein malnutrition today will be expressed in 2 to 3 years' time. By that time, the bus is gone. So you have to plan for the future.
Thank you very much. Engineer Kamaladasa, you mentioned that the importance of shifting toward, changing the cultivations from paddy cultivations to commercial agriculture in order to increase the share of our GDP, especially. But we know we don't have a free market system in this country. We know sometimes government impose various taxes, price controls. Whenever prices goes up, government import the things. You know what happens to potato, big onions, now eggs. So in a situation like this, how can we protect these farmers. Suppose they are willing to go for commercial agriculture, but finally if they are not, if they cannot guarantee, if we cannot guarantee their existence in terms of the income, how can we encourage as professionals? We will be answerable to them. What's your opinion on this?
Now, to make agriculture commercially viable, we need to have preconditions for that. Now, one thing is there has to be investment to make it a commercially viable project. Now, subsistence farmer cannot create a commercial enterprise. So we need to have, that's what I said, the releasing of land rights. Probably there has to be economic growth in other areas where people will move from agriculture to those areas, and the land will be available for the real farmers, and the land extent will be a viable size for them to start commercial agriculture. So it's all interconnected, like Professor Marambe wanted to say, it's all interconnected. Now, your point is valid. Government has to have a consistent policy framework. Otherwise, what will happen is today they say one thing and tomorrow they say another thing, and people will get discouraged and they will, that is one thing. We need to have that also a precondition. The third precondition is for commercial agriculture to succeed, we need to link that with the supply chain. Supply chain, especially if we are going for export agriculture. So that again, we need a bit of an investment, and investors also has to be given a consistent policy framework. Now today, government will say something, tomorrow they will revert back. And that condition, not only the farmers, but even the investors will not come. So the commercial agriculture will not succeed unless those preconditions are met on the ground. Yeah. Because I have the mic, I have to use it for one small thing. In my presentation, I said seeds, the paddy seeds are imported, but Professor Marambe says in case of paddy, agriculture department or locally produced, but maybe the vegetables, there will be seeds, probably will be imported. So not paddy. So that has to be corrected. Apologies for, yeah.
Thank you. Another one, now again, now if we try to encourage these smallholder farmers for commercial agriculture, we need a very strong, what we call the attitude change. Because I have some personal experience, let me share them. Now in the Valimad area, when they are growing potatoes and vegetables in the Yala season and paddy in the Maha season. I asked why you are growing, cultivating paddy in the Maha season, why don't you cultivate potato or vegetables also in Maha season to get a good income? One farmer replied, his answer was, I should have my own rice in my house whenever I am sick whenever I am sick to prepare some porridge. So that is the mindset. Another farmer replied, I am being a farmer, it's a shame for me to go to the retail shop and buy paddy, buy rice. So how can we change these mindsets? Sometimes they are egocentric, sometimes culturally based. So what is the strategy we can follow as professionals to change their mindsets?
Again, I would like to add to your list another thing that I have observed. Now we are talking about connecting farmers to a supply chain. Now there had been commercial agreements between farmers and companies, and with that agreement they have provided seeds and the rest of the things and supported the agriculture production. But the problem was when the harvest was there was a demand from the market, and without selling it to the supply chain, as per the agreement, they sold it to outsiders. And the whole agreement was lost. Not only the government is not consistent, our people are not consistent in their commitments. So, as you said, the attitudes is a problem in everywhere. So, I don't know how to combat that, but that is also a big issue. But if you really cultivate enterprising entrepreneurship in the school curricula. Now, I know most of the time in our education system, only look for jobs. Now, those people who cannot find a job will only do business. But it should be the other way around. The business should come first and then the jobs next. So in all areas, there is a problem in attitudes which we need to solve. So probably the education system need to come into the picture.
Thank you very much. I have only one more question, if you permit me, from Dr.
Yeah, no problem,
Shiromani.
but quickly.
Yeah. Earlier we talked about the spatial variations of rainfall, where wet season get wetter and dry season get drier. So what about the temporal variations in rainfall in Sri Lanka? Do you agree with these predictions? How much will affect Sri Lanka, the temporal variations? Because our agriculture pattern mainly based on the traditional Yalamaha systems.
Yeah, actually, we developed that projection. So we use 6 models, and so there's the uncertainty because we developed this for high emission scenario and moderate emission scenario. And when we consider the seasons, like we found that northeast monsoon we get less rain, first in the monsoon we get less rain, and southwest monsoon we get more rain. Second inter monsoon also we get more rain. So that means at the beginning of Maha season, we get rain, but the latter part we get less rain. So Yala season is usually start with second inter monsoon. So for first inter monsoon, sorry. So this first inter monsoon rain, there's a reduction in that rain. But when we consider the timing of monsoon, actually we haven't done that for the projections, future projections. So far, we cannot see changes because usually the onset is 25th May, but there's a standard deviation of 7 days. So usually the onset established by that time, within the 7 days before 21st or after 25th. So that usually we cannot see much changes. But this interannual variability, EOTO variation occurs due to this type of El Nino, La Nina, Indian Ocean dipole, those things.
Thank you very much.
Then I thank you very much, our two discussants, Deepthi and Tushara. And I think it is now time to conclude our today's event. If there are any further comments or any questions or clarification, you can email. And I think Janaki told me that they have appointed 3 rapporteurs and they will prepare a report. And those who have put their questions or anything to the chat box, so that also we can address. And finally, we have to share this document with the relevant agencies and the government. So I think at this moment, I am taking this opportunity to thank our 3 speakers, Professor Buddhi Marabe and Engineer Niswanta Kamaladasa and our Dr. Shiromani Jayawardena. But one point I want to highlight, when Dr. Shiromani has highlighted to give some impact-based forecasting, you need to the support of irrigation department and other agencies. That is very much true, but the message I want to give you is there's opportunity, big opportunity, because now 3 water related disasters, that means flood, droughts and your rainfall, then landslides. So now we are developing jointly common platform to work, all four agencies to work together. But that doesn't mean normally some agency or employees are not happy with this. They think our mandate, will be, there's no such thing. You can maintain your data, you can maintain your mandate, but we will hire some common space for all of us to work. So then we don't want any separate servers and machines and all, because how can we get some expensive electronic engineers to agencies like you want? Well, it's difficult, no? So we can hire common space and we can work together. So I think that will come very soon, no? I think you have worked up to certain level now. So there is a message that I want to give, and thank you very much, and I have done my part. So,
Thank you very much, dear sir, for conducting mind-blowing discussion. Now we are circulating the Google form link in the chat box. Please fill the form with preferred name which you wish to put your e-certificate, which will be distributed your valuable participation in the World Water Day celebration in 2023. And now we have a small video from our sponsors. Let's watch it. Give the token of appreciation, and I would like to now invite Engineer Neil Abesekara, CEO and Executive Secretary of IESL, and Engineer Kamala Gunawardana, the Chairperson of the Engineering Sectional Committee, and Engineer Chandana Edirisuriya, PD, Climate Resilience and Water Management Project, to the stage to give the token of appreciations to our speakers and the moderator. And I also invite Madam Janaki Vigastanna for this event. Okay. First, we are going to give the token of appreciation for the DCS engineer, DCS Alakanda. Next, Professor Buddhi Marabe. Next, Dr. Shiromini Jayawardena. Next, Engineer Nishant Kamaladasa. Next, Engineer Deepthi Sumanasekara. At last, Engineer Tushara Disanayaka. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Now you can go to your seats. Now we came to the last segment of IESL World Water Day Celebrations 2023. Let me introduce Engineer Ruchini Chandratilaka, the Secretary of the Water Forum of IESL, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Engineer Lakshmi. Good evening to all of you. IESL CEO, Engineer Neil Abesekara sir, Engineer Badra Kamaladas sir, Chairperson of the Water Forum, committee members of the Water Forum, all the invited speakers today, distinguished invitees, all the participants, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege to propose vote of thanks on this occasion as the Secretary of the Water Forum. In first place, on behalf of the Water Forum, on behalf of the organizing committee, I extend my gratitude to all the resource persons today for sparing their time in this important event, accepting our invitation on our first request without any hesitation. Among them, first I would like to thank speakers, Professor Buddhimarabe, Engineer Nishant Kamaladasa, and Dr. Shiromani Jayawardena for sharing your valuable knowledge, experience and opinion with us. I'm also very grateful to two discussants today, Engineer Deepthi Sumanasekara and Engineer Tushara Disanayaka for making valuable comments on these presentations. Then I would like to thank moderator today, Engineer D.C.S. Alakanda for moderating the event effectively. Once again, I express our deepest sense of appreciation to all the speakers, discussants and moderator of this stage. Then I would like to thank all our sponsors of today, Climate Resilience Integrated Water Management Project, Mahawali Consultancy Bureau, Climate Resilience Multi-Phase Approach Project for your generous sponsorship to making this event a success. Further, I would like to acknowledge our gratitude to all the distinguished guests participated this event, accepting our invitation. Dear Sir, Madam, thank you very much. Your presence is honor for us. My special thank goes to Director General of Irrigation, Engineer Deepika Trimavitarna, for providing Irrigation Department media team to cover this event. And thank you very much for your valuable support. And thank you very much, Irrigation Department media team, for covering this event nicely. I would like to thank Dr. Kamal Lakshmi sir, President IESL, Professor Ranjit Disanayaka, President-elect IESL, CEO Neil Abesekara sir, and council members of their support throughout this event. I would like to acknowledge our gratitude to Engineer Kumudunidira Director of Irrigation Kandy Region, and Engineer K.W. Narangamana, Divisional Irrigation Engineer Mathale for support by providing logistics. Then I am also very grateful to 3 rapporteurs today, Engineer Sarvanathan Sarvaraja, Engineer Kumaraswamy Sivakaran, Engineer Anandamurthy Vaiharan in Northern Provincial Council. My special thank goes to ISL Secretariat, particularly Mr. Chamila, Ms. Gayatri, and Mr. Chamara for their support in making arrangements. I would like to thank our host of the ceremony today, Engineer Lakshmi Sivardhana, for completing this event nicely. And then, very specially, I would like to thank Engineer Badra Kamaladasa Madam, Chairperson of the Water Forum, for your guidance on organizing this event effectively, and Engineer Janaki Megastana Madam, main organizer of this event, Water Forum Executive Committee, and all young engineers, thank you very much for organizing this event nicely. Finally, I would like to thank all the participants who are with us during the World Water Day 2023 program today, both physically and virtually. Hope this event excel your understanding on accelerating change to solve the water crisis. Once again, I thank you all and wish you a pleasant evening. Please join with us for reception at ISL canteen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Engineer Ruchini Chandratilaka. Ladies and gentlemen, please have a seat for a while until the concluding. We have a great session for celebration of World Water Day 2023 with the theme of accelerated change. In conclusion, we have come to the end of the event. So I would like to thank our sponsor who supported this event and all the participants and organizers who have contributed the success of this event. I would like to ask you to rise for the national anthem.
Sri